911.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Rodney Dykes. I need an ambulance and police at 2060 College Boulevard.
Okay, what's going on?
I don't know everything, but my son's wife is dead.
In the quiet town of Magnolia, Texas, a simple check-in between parents and their son's wife turned into a nightmare that no one could have predicted. What happened behind that door? Angi Diaz, just 21 years old, was found. Her body dismembered in a scene so horrific, it would leave anyone who saw it shaken.
No, she's down and there's no head on her body.
A young marriage, a fresh start. But just months in, everything changed in an instant. Was it love turned toxic? Was it a moment of madness? Or was there something darker at play? The truth is buried in the details. Stick with us, because what happened next will leave you questioning everything. But before we begin, I want to thank you, my amazing viewers and subscribers, for your support through your likes, shares, and comments. Your engagements help make these stories more meaningful. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts. Now let's get started. Magnolia, Texas, known for its peaceful streets lined with towering magnolia trees, this small town is the kind of place where everyone knows your name. A town where life moves slowly, where people wave as they pass by, and where the biggest worry might be whether or not the local diner has your favorite pie. It's the kind of place where violent crime seems almost unimaginable. But on January 11th, 2023, that illusion of safety shattered. In a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of town, the last place anyone would expect a nightmare to unfold, tragedy struck. And it all started with a phone call, a call that would forever change the lives of one family. Rodney and Lynn Dickus were no strangers to law enforcement. They had lived in Waller County long enough to know the officers by name. They weren't naive to the challenges that sometimes arose within their community. But even with their years of experience, they were unprepared for what they would find when they stepped into their son's home. Their son, Jared, and his wife, Angi, lived in a small cabin behind their parents' property. It was a cozy setup, tucked away from the main house, where Jared and Angi had built their life together. To outsiders, the picture seemed perfect. Jared, at 21, was still young but full of potential. He had always been a responsible guy, someone who seemed to have his life together. He worked as an electrician, and while his past wasn't spotless, he was trying to build a future. And then there was Angi, 21, vibrant, ambitious, and full of dreams. Together, they looked like a perfect couple. They were newly married, fresh-faced, excited to start their lives as a young married couple. Their wedding had taken place just months earlier, in October 2022. Their photos were filled with smiles, youthful, hopeful smiles, shared with friends and family. It wasn't until that fateful day in January, when Rodney and Lynn went to check on their daughter-in-law, that the facade began to crumble. They entered the house, the door creaking as they stepped inside, but there was no sign of Angi. They called out her name, but there was no answer. Then, Rodney stepped farther into the house. His eyes darted around, scanning for something, anything, that could explain the unease he felt. And that's when he saw it. A towel on the floor, something unfamiliar in the corner of his vision. He hesitated, then moved closer. As his foot touched the first step leading to the main room, the reality of what he was seeing began to settle in. The floor was soaked in. A mixture of shock and dread filled him as his mind tried to make sense of it. And then he saw Angi's body. There was no mistaking it. The lifeless body of his daughter-in-law was sprawled out before him. The sight was so horrifying, so surreal. It couldn't have been real, but it was. And in that moment, everything changed.
Went out, both you and your wife run out there?
Okay, and there's only one entrance, and that's the front, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so when you walked in there, what did you see?
I opened the door and I walked in, and you couldn't see anything, and I took a step in, and I saw her laying on the floor. And that's what I told my wife. I said, "You don't want to come in here," and she came in. And I said, "Call 911," and I knew she wasn't going to be able to.
Okay.
I grabbed my phone and I started calling.
Where was Jared at that time?
He was in the house, laying in the floor, crying.
What had been a seemingly perfect marriage, a fresh start, was now something far darker. Rodney and Lynn, their world crashing down around them, did the only thing they could. They called 911. But by the time the authorities arrived, the damage had been done. The picture-perfect life they had once believed in was now gone, replaced with a shocking and horrific truth. This wasn't just a random act of violence. This was personal. This was a tragedy that would unravel everything they thought they knew about their son, Jared, and the woman they had welcomed into their family. Minutes later, the police arrived on the scene, and the horror deepened. As the officers took over, they quickly secured the area, preserving what was left of the crime scene. The house was now a crime scene, a horrific display of violence that no one could have prepared for.
I could see into the house. The front door was open. There looked to be like a towel on the floor and pink socks from what I could originally see. As I began to step up the steps, I could see underneath the towel looked like blood.
One officer ventured into the bathroom, following the blood-streaked footprints that led them there.
She was just decapitated. She's got stab wounds to her back. Her head's in the bathtub.
In the bathtub, they found what had once been Angi's head, still and lifeless, staring up at the ceiling. It was a sight so chilling, so incomprehensible, that even seasoned officers felt the weight of the moment. A knife lay nearby, a grim testament to the brutality of the crime. It was clear that this wasn't just a random act of violence, it was something deeply personal. The police began their investigation, piecing together what had happened in those final moments. There were no answers yet. No one knew who had done this or why, but the facts were clear.
I got a question when you got time. Miss Angie, do you know what her last name was before she and your brother got married?
What's Angie's last name? Do you know? Her maiden last name.
I don't know that.
I don't know.
Okay, how about a date of birth?
Here's her phone.
Here, let me see.
Let me.
It's all
go
in
ahead.
Spanish, so I don't know.
Yeah. I don't want to touch this either here. So, normal fingerprints on it. Like, you know. So, anyways.
That's all you know about her?
Yeah, I just know she worked over there. I know she was not here.
Where'd she work?
Chepis Meat Market.
The Cheppies?
That's where that met, yeah. I know she's here, you know.
Did she still work at Cheppies?
Yeah. I know she's not really a legal citizen, you know. I'm just saying.
I don't care.
No, I don't care either. I mean,
okay.
She's family.
When the police arrived at the scene of the crime, Jared Dykus was already there. He was found at the house, standing amidst the chaos, as if disconnected from the brutality that had just unfolded. He didn't try to run. He didn't make any attempt to deny what had happened. His presence, in fact, seemed almost eerily calm given the circumstances. It didn't take long for the officers to take him into custody. Jared's behavior in the days leading up to the murder had raised red flags. His parents had noticed something off about him, something that didn't quite match the Jared they had known for years. His mother, Lynn, had even seen him with a strange phone. It wasn't the usual one he'd had for months, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She had tried to dismiss it, but the feeling wouldn't go away. Jared had been acting erratic, more distant than usual, and his behavior was beginning to worry them.
This morning,
Who told you?
Jared,
Okay.
and he has been acting really strange lately.
For years, Jared had struggled with alcohol. At times, it would be under control, but when it wasn't, it got out of hand. It wasn't just alcohol, though. Jared had also dabbled in drugs, especially methamphetamine. His older brother Wayne had a well-known history of drug use, which added a layer of tension to the family dynamics.
He was on meth. And then you would start grilling him about it, and then he would say, I'm not on meth. I just told you that. But we had some experience with meth use, me and the wife. Not personal experience, but we had some experience going through family members on meth and dealing with them in the past, and it's horrible. It's awful. You and I've had this conversation before.
That was your other son.
That was my other son. And when Jared told us a couple of days ago that he was using meth now, that he had gone and gotten meth, and that's what was wrong with him, it just broke my heart, because that's the son that didn't do that stuff. Okay, he wasn't a perfect kid. He had some problems with alcohol. Not problems with alcohol, but when he would go out with his friends or something, that was a problem, because he would drink too much.
Right.
But on a day-to-day basis, he didn't drink. I mean, when he had to work, he didn't mess around. He wasn't. But when he was off, the party was on. You know, it was okay.
Though Jared was the younger brother, he often found himself trying to manage not only his life, but Wayne's too.
But when I heard possible VOA at 206 Ocala, I thought it was
this guy does like
the brother that's sitting up down in the carport. I just figured he'd OD. Yeah, I didn't think this other one would be involved.
Angi Diaz came to the U.S. with a different kind of ambition. Born in Nicaragua, she arrived in Texas seeking the American dream. It wasn't just about a better job or a better house. It was about a new life. Angi worked hard as a cashier, then as a personal trainer, always with a goal to improve her life, and in turn, help her family back home. Her mother, who had sent Angi and her siblings to live with an aunt in Nicaragua, was more cautious. She had worked hard to get her kids into a better position, but she was wary of Angi's desire to marry Jared so quickly. But Angi had her own reasons for rushing into the marriage. It wasn't just love, it was survival. Fear of being deported and not being able to stay in the U.S. weighed heavily on her.
Maybe a month or two after they started dating? No. Actually, they had probably been together for more than 6 months as a couple. Then she had an accident, and they wanted to deport her. I imagine they rushed their wedding. I told her that it would be better for them to take their time, to really get to know each other, because rushing into something like that wasn't right. I advised her to set boundaries with him, to make sure he respected her, and not to take things lightly. I had seen many similar cases with other friends when I lived there, women who ended up suffering abuse and mistreatment. That's why I gave her advice, because I wanted the best for her.
She's saying she had an accident, and she believes that they were trying to deport her, and that was one of the reasons why they got.
Jared seemed like her escape, a solution to a problem that had no easy fix. He represented stability, security, and the chance to continue building the life she had started here. And so, in October 2022, she married Jared. At first, it seemed like the perfect union. Young love, a new life together. But behind the smiles in their social media photos, cracks began to show. Angi's mother had been right to have reservations. She was scared for her daughter but didn't have a way to intervene. It didn't take long for Angi's friends and co-workers to notice the shift in her behavior.
Maybe at the time I didn't really notice. But looking back now, analyzing everything and talking with my husband that day, I started to see them. That night, I bought some beers to share, and he was drinking. I noticed that he would get irritated because we were all Hispanic, and he only spoke English. He seemed frustrated that he couldn't understand us, and I could see that she would get nervous, constantly translating for him.
Angi, once vibrant and full of energy, started to withdraw. She became nervous, even jumpy at times, and her usual confidence seemed to disappear.
It feels like a dream, a nightmare. Ruth Almendares, who worked with Diaz, says she considered Angi to be like a daughter, adding that it was here where she met her husband, Jared Dykes.
Those close to her began to notice physical signs of abuse, bruises on her arms, on her shoulders. She tried to hide them, but it was becoming more difficult. She wasn't the same person anymore. Angi began confiding in her friends. She told them that things with Jared had changed, that he had become violent. She spoke about the arguments, the physical confrontations. Her words were a quiet admission of a reality that was too dangerous to ignore.
So I asked. They told me, look, talk to Angi.
And then Tuesday.
When I got there on Tuesday, I asked, what happened with Angi? But at first I thought they were going to bring up some kind of work-related issue. Then they told me, no.
She said that her brother had told her you need to talk to Angi, and she was thinking that she might have got a complaint from her.
Angi doesn't look well. Something's wrong with her. She came in on Tuesday, sometime between 1 and 1:30.
Angi didn't look right, didn't seem right. She went and spoke and hung out with Angi, and they spoke. That's what she noticed the most.
One of her closest friends at work remembered a particular moment when Angi lifted her shirt to reveal a bruise on her shoulder. The friend asked her what happened, and Angi explained that they had been arguing all night that Jared had hit her.
Does she know how Angi got that bruise?
When you saw those bruises, did Angi tell you how that happened to her?
She said they had been arguing all night. And that was the reason she looked really bad on Monday, because that was Sunday. She went to the movies on Monday. She looked bad because she hadn't slept all night and hadn't been allowed to sleep.
They had been arguing on Sunday night, and she got no sleep. She said she was taking a shower, and they'd been arguing. And then when she got out of the shower, she was assaulted by the husband. And for what reason? Did he say he hit her?
Who?
The husband. Why?
Supposedly, she had gone out with her aunt on Sunday.
Because she had gone out with her aunt, and he didn't want her to go with anybody, not even her aunt.
This was a turning point. Angi said she couldn't live like this anymore, that she was planning to leave Jared. But she hadn't told him yet. She was scared. She didn't know how to tell him.
Opportunity to stay with her for a while and asked, hey, what's wrong? What happened to you? There was another coworker in the kitchen, Erica.
Erica was there.
And that's when she told us she was going to separate from him.
She told her and Erica that she was going to separate.
She told both of us that she was leaving him and that she would never get married again. I asked her, was it really that bad? Has it been that terrible for you? Why? That's when I got closer, lifted her shirt a little and told her, you can't let this keep happening.
That's when she got close and the clothing to the side.
But Jared's troubling behavior wasn't limited to just his relationship with Angi. Just a few weeks before the murder, Jared had been arrested for DWI. He had been caught at a local fast food restaurant, acting aggressively toward employees. When the police arrived, Jared refused to calm down, and they had to restrain him before taking him into custody. Rodney and Lynn Dykes immediately noticed that their son was acting strange. But the biggest red flag came when they saw the unfamiliar phone in his possession.
We noticed that he had a phone that didn't look right. And what I mean by that is it didn't look like it was his phone. So we started questioning him about the phone. We didn't. Lynn started questioning him about the phone. And she finally got him to pull his phone out of his pocket, his front pant pocket. And it wasn't his phone. And she's like, whose phone is that? That's not your phone. Oh, I have multiple.
It wasn't his usual phone. It was sleek, with a language setting in Spanish, a clear sign that it belonged to Angi. Jared was immediately asked about the phone. He was evasive, trying to brush off the question with a simple answer. But there was no hiding the truth. This wasn't just any phone, it was Angi's phone, the one she always kept close, the one she used to communicate with her family and friends, the same phone that had been with her just hours before her body was discovered. The moment Lynn saw the phone, she knew something was terribly wrong.
And that's when we jumped up and I said, oh my God, what's going on? And we ran out there. That's when we called, that's when I called 911.
The pieces were starting to fall into place. Jared had been acting strange, distant, even violent, and now he was in possession of Angi's phone. So after Jared were taken for investigation, at first, Jared denied any involvement in his wife's brutal murder. His answers were vague, his tone defensive.
You can't even keep a straight face, buddy.
He insisted that he didn't remember the details, that he wasn't fully aware of what had happened. But as the questions kept coming, his walls began to crack, one hesitation at a time.
I just forgot who I was in the city was. Jesus Christ. Lost my way. I just want to get out of there. I'm very sorry. Sorry, I fell ill.
Help us understand. Tell us why you're sorry. Tell us what occurred for this tragic ending to happen. What happened? What was going on?
Just drugs, and you gotta stay away from drugs.
Well, I understand that. So you did it, and tell us what happened after you took it.
Drugs just make you go crazy. It makes you really sorry.
Jared spoke in broken phrases, sometimes looking down at his hands, others gazing blankly into the air as if lost in a haze. He claimed his actions had been out of his control. I wasn't myself, he said. It was the drugs, the meth. It made me crazy. It wasn't me.
What did I see? Tell me what I saw. I'm asking you.
That's what it's been to do.
And made you cut her head off.
But despite his words, his body language told a different story. His eyes flickered nervously, avoiding direct contact with the detectives. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, like someone trying to hold on to a fading lie. The more the officers probed, the more Jared's version of events seemed to shift and evolve. It was as if he was trying to piece together a story that didn't quite fit. The detectives didn't let up. They carefully walked Jared through the details, inch by inch. They asked him about the night, about the hours leading up to Angi's death. It was clear they weren't buying his claims of a psychotic break. Jared had moments of clarity, especially when talking about what happened after the murder. In fact, it was when the details started coming together that Jared's story began to fall apart. I came home, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She was awake. We argued. I don't know why, but I just snapped. The confession was slow, reluctant, but it was coming out. He went on, explaining how, in the heat of the argument, things escalated. Jared's voice trembled as he described what happened next. He admitted to killing Angi, his wife, the woman he had married just months before. He spoke of grabbing a knife, his voice shaking as he described stabbing her. But it wasn't just the stabbing. It was the aftermath that left the detectives stunned. He admitted to cutting off her head. There was no remorse in his voice, not at first. Instead, Jared seemed detached, almost mechanical as he recounted the horrifying act. He spoke of the blood on the floor, of Angi's lifeless body sprawled in the living room, and of the surreal moment when he realized what he had done. But the chilling part wasn't just his confession, it was what followed.
Yes. There were other stabbings on her body. Did you do that after you cut her head off? Or before?
Oh. Before or afterwards, you said?
told me before. Why did you put her head in the bathtub?
He told me.
Her hair was wet. How come? Did you turn the shower on?
Yes.
To wash yourself, or to wash her hair, or what?
To wash.
I tried to clean it up, he said quietly, almost as if he were ashamed of his own actions. I tried to hide it, to fix it. I knew what I did was wrong. And that was the problem. Jared had tried to cover his tracks. He had been aware enough to attempt to clean up the mess, to remove the evidence. He wasn't acting under some uncontrollable drug-induced delusion. He was trying to fix what he had done, to make it go away. He was trying to erase the crime, to hide it from the world, and most importantly, from his family.
When you went over to their house, there were no voices that told you to hurt them?
There's voices that tell me to shoot.
To shoot yourself? Why didn't you? Where was the gun? You weren't gonna hurt your parents. So you could control that. You could control not hurting them.
This realization hit hard. If Jared truly believed he was in the grip of some drug-induced psychosis, why would he have bothered to clean up? Why would he have taken the time to move her body, to try and disguise the crime? The detectives pressed further, questioning the motives behind the murder. Was it a fight that escalated out of control? Was it anger or jealousy? But Jared's responses remained jumbled. He claimed there were voices in his head, but the officers knew better than to take that at face value. This wasn't a man being driven by some invisible force. This was a man who had snapped in a moment of rage and had tried to erase the aftermath. The courtroom was heavy with emotion as Jared Dicus stood before the judge. Despite his initial claims of a drug-induced psychotic break, the court had ruled that he was mentally competent to stand trial. His plea of guilty to the murder of his wife, Angi Diaz, was part of a deal, an agreement that would see him sentenced to 40 years in prison in August 2024. There would be no trial, no lengthy legal battles. Jared had waived his right to appeal, and in doing so he sealed his fate. The plea agreement was a way to bring closure to a case that had shocked everyone who knew Angi. But closure, in the legal sense, didn't erase the emotional toll left behind. Jared's conviction did nothing to bring back Angi, and it did little to soothe the ache in her family's hearts. Her friends and co-workers remembered her fondly. Despite the trauma, they focused on the positive impact she had made in their lives. Her kindness, her infectious smile, and her ambition. Angi's family struggled to understand how someone who had so much to live for could be taken away so violently, especially by the very person she had trusted. The community of Magnolia, Texas was shaken to its core. A place known for its quiet, peaceful life was now forever marked by the crime that had unfolded behind the closed doors of a home that had once been filled with hope. Many in the community couldn't reconcile the image of Jared and Angi, the young couple, the newlyweds full of promise, with the brutal act that had shattered that illusion. The question everyone kept asking was, how could something like this happen? As we reflect on this case, it becomes clear just how fragile life can be. Angi Diaz came to America to build a better future. She worked hard, was kind-hearted, and had so much promise, but in the blink of an eye, her dreams were shattered by a man who should have been her partner, but instead became her executioner. But one of the major questions raised was how quickly they got married without getting to know each other so well. So, what do you think about this case? We really want to hear from you. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more true crime cases.